what do you think defines an American today?
Well, I don't think that's a good. I don't think the reigning definition would be, um, among the kind of people who actually rule and the people who want to be like them, is not really citizenship in the old sense, right?
Right.
What they mean by being an American is really having a passport to, the global American empire. I mean that's what they mean by it. And now people are people, and there's a natural desire to kind of love your own place and all of that. But people get weird now. The elites get weird when they talk about citizenship. There's really no such thing as citizenship for them. Rights and duties that come out of being a citizen, which means you have some share in the rule of your own country. So there's self-governance. Really, self-governance requires virtue, and self-governance is, it's kind of a pain. Like, you can't just sit on the couch and eat potato chips. Like, self-governance means you got to do stuff. That was the notion of citizenship. And so that's always easier if you have a homogenous population, by the way, whatever the population is. Like, there is a sense in which the more unity there is among them, because they agree on the same things, they have the same traditions, they see themselves as related in some way. I mean, that's just normal human nature, tribalism, and on the good side, which is absolutely that. There's a kind of unity there, so that ultimately, like Aristotle says, ultimately you want a society in which everyone sees each other as friends because they're countrymen. And his example is in Sparta, you can eat the fruit of like anyone's tree when you're traveling, because it's just like, of course, you're traveling, you're hungry, take an apple from the tree,
I
and
was
and and that's what you want. Yeah.
well, I was just in a state somewhere this summer where it was illegal to reject somebody a glass of water. And it seems to me that that's very similar. I think it was Arizona, might have
Hmm.
been Nevada,
Ah,
where like
ah,
literally is against the law
ah.
to reject somebody a glass of water. If you ask for a glass of water, they have to give it to you. Uh, seems like a similar sentiment, and I appreciate your answer because it does call to the forefront the difference between becoming a citizen for the opportunity, the land of
Mhm.
opportunity, meaning I can come here and get rich, material wants, or duties, obligations, right? Rights and
Yeah.
duties, which come together. And I think that what we talked about at the fellowship late into the evening was that today, what defines who is an American? Somebody that believes and loves the stories, the heroes, the mythology, the founders, the titans of America, the values, and wants to participate in prolonging those things.
Mhm.
And I think that that's actually a very simple cutoff. It's like,
Yeah.
do you believe in the founding? Do you believe in George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, all these guys? Do you believe in Babe Ruth? Do you believe in baseball? Do you like apple pie? Like all the all these things are really important because I think that you've got a lot of people now who are like, no, I don't. I don't agree with the founding. I don't agree with the founding principles. The whole thing was founded
Right.
in hate. The whole thing was founded around slavery. I don't like Babe Ruth. I don't like baseball. I don't like apple pie. I don't like the
Mhm.
family. I don't like dads. I don't like patriarchy, which you know what is not a bad word, right? And these people just they don't share in the myths and the stories and the heroes of our country. And it's hard because nobody's promoting that crap anymore. And that's why Claremont gets it's such like it can be such an outlier in this
Mhm.
environment because they're still talking about these things, the myths and stories that are important to us, and people think that's weird.
Yeah, well, I think tens of millions of Americans don't think it's weird and are totally cool with it.
Right.
But then there's those who've really been influenced by the Borg over the years, and they take umbrage, and they don't have. This is why we're in such a serious way, and this is why It's completely irresponsible what's going on right now. They talk about extremism and radicalism on the right. Like, what is going on right now is completely irresponsible because even in the best case scenario, even if you agreed with the principles of the left, right, what they're doing right now is just running a country into the ground and guaranteeing to split it up. They have a notion of citizenship that exactly is basically a basket of stuff that you're supposed to get and we're supposed to give the rest of the world, and everyone can come over and it's like a benefits package, can become an American and get the benefits package. Now look, there's nothing wrong with that per se. It's maybe part of something else. Like there might be some bennies that come with the job, but it's a job, and the job means here not the economic opportunity that you're coming for, but the job of being a citizen, a good citizen. And every country has the right to choose, who can potentially do that and who can't. And here's the biggest problem. The biggest problem is just, again, it doesn't matter. There's so many crazy people who want to, either on left and right, who want to get into kind of a weird, racial essentialism and just in kind of bizarre ways to me. It doesn't matter. Like color, the ethnicity matters. The differences matter in this way. It doesn't matter what the colors are. You can mix up the equation, right? That's not my claim. Just I'm prefacing this because I know what people will say. The problem is that if you just take a whole ton of diversity and dump it into, any regime, it causes a lot of problems. Everyone understands this. Every other country understands this. The Chinese understand this. The Russians understand this. Many European countries are, coming to understand it, but they're like us. They pretend it's not a problem. This is how the Roman Empire ultimately dies long term. I mean, this is how you destroy countries. You can't just mix and match with millions of people and throw them all together and think everything else hunky-dory. That is the height of political irresponsibility. And if you're not, moronic by doing that, then you are malicious, because this is not something that is conducive to human flourishing and human happiness. Ultimately, for everyone, you have to be very careful about how you build a country and how you assimilate people to, the same ideals, yes, and the same traditions and the same families. It takes a while for people to, to come together. And when America's been successful, it's been because we took assimilation seriously. And we took our time, ultimately. We said, we need to slow down. All right, we're all going to try to live together. And it takes time to develop that. These people have no idea what they're doing. They have no idea what they're doing. They don't care or understand the basics of political philosophy at all. I mean, just like the basic, like you teach a freshman, in a decent time and place. And in fact, and then they just call everyone a racist, fascist, Nazi who disagrees with them. So, Claremont is through giving a damn about what they say. And certainly I'm through with that, giving a damn about what they say. But we need to be able to talk about these things in a serious way.
I appreciate that commentary. 100% accurate on that. And one of the questions that I took away from the fellowship and that I've been asking everyone I've talked to since then, it was very clear. Hamilton said very clear, and I think it was echoed in other parts of the Federalist Papers, that the government was created like a coat to suit the people. It had to be tailor fit, and what made sense in Washington made no sense in Paris and was preposterous in Petersburg. Some paraphrase of all of that. It is very clear that the people have changed. To what extent do we now require a different cloak? Can the cloak that was designed, and I have a few questions here, because the cloak that was designed then, does it fit the people that we have now? This is one question. The second question is, and I'm leading a little bit here, is were the founders focused on creating a tripartite republic, constitutional republic, or were they focused on creating the right government at the right time for the people that were there? And then is there, and this is the third part, and you can take all this and address however you want, are there other regimes that would protect the natural rights of man in the way that our government was intended to do?
Those are good. Those are good ones. Those are the big ones. New founding.
Right.
Yeah. So there's two sides to this. One is that, in my opinion, there has to be certain, and I know we're all not supposed to say this because all of us are against the neocons, and we are, but there are certain universal principles of human nature that kind of dictate what can and can't be done politically throughout human history. And they're applied differently in different times and places, but there's got to be, I would argue, I mean, it's a longer discussion, but I'd argue there's got to be some of those, right? It can't just be all willy-nilly. Human beings are a certain kind of thing. There's certain recognizable facets to them, certain recognizable needs they have, desires they have, and accordingly, there'd be certain principles or rules about building human community, right? So there's that on one side. And then we argue about what those things are. That's our big arguments about philosophy and ethics, and we argue about ultimately what those are. But they got to be there. And then the other side of it, like, yeah, you have to fit any kind of political structure or form, which is going to shape the people. It also has to match the people, right? So like a measure, like a ruler. Aquinas actually talks about law as a ruler, a measure. I mean, there's kind of two ways in which you can look at that or use it, right? You can't use it in certain circumstances. To some degree, whatever you're measuring has to correlate with the ruler, right? I mean, does that make sense? So it's both ways, right? The people, there's kind of universal principles, but the people are going to dictate what kind of form and structure you can establish in that time and place. I mean, hell, the land is going to, the landscape, physical reality is going to dictate what kind of like government you can have, and shape it in some way. So I think that if we're being honest, at first blush, your first question, it's absolutely the case that we are not the same people. And I don't just mean by that we're a lot bigger, or we have people from different countries, I mean that the kind of people we are, right, is different. So one example would be there's really not a single one of them, whether they're religious or not, who thought you could really have the Republican form of government that they established without some kind of religion. And generally they're thinking of Christianity. I mean, if that's really what they thought, we might think, well, that's stupid, and I get it. Like, we're all moderns, right? That's dumb. But they really thought that, and they were kind of smart. They're the ones who actually founded the damn thing, right? And why don't we hear the right talk about that more, right? Why don't I hear people say, well, the founders didn't even think you could have this form of government if the people, weren't religious in that way and didn't have that. Maybe you could make an argument you could do it in some other way, but they didn't do that. So why aren't we talking about the fact that this isn't even possible, what they established, right? There's a number of points like that where I would say, I think there'd be probably a lot of agreement, at least after a few beers with people who lean right, to say, yeah, this is very different. And what then form of government do we have? The code would have to change. But I would say the code has already changed. I mean, we've already a few times, refounded America, and over the last century or so. So, you see it with Wilson, FDR, the Civil Rights Act. I think Chris Caldwell's book is very good on this. We've already slowly changed the form of the regime, in our interpretation of the Constitution, at least, and the laws we've passed, and the structure of the administrative state, by the way, which is now, rules Congress. Congress is a creature of that monster. So we've already kind of developed something different. So I guess it's more appropriate to talk about this looking forward. We don't like what we have. What we have needs to be refounded or reshaped or realtered, if anyone's being honest, and because the way it's metastasized. And then what on the other side of that? Like, what does victory actually look like? And I think that's an open question, because you'd have to take into account, where we're at and what led to victory, I think, against the powers that be now, and say what's possible in the future, given, the size of the country, et cetera, et cetera. But I guess what I would say is, and then to be definitive about your last question, I would say, controversially, I don't think maybe a lot of my Claremont friends would not disagree, would agree with me. But I think there's all kinds of regime forms that could secure natural rights in the way most people think about, changes in regime form. So I would say that, yeah, you can actually, you can secure natural rights and promote the common good in a variety of ways. And I think something, at least, you got to choose one of the the rule of the one, the rule of the few, the rule of the many. But in practice, they're all pretty mixed. Usually, like a lot of monarchies have judges and even parliaments or whatever. In practice, they're all pretty mixed. But I don't actually I don't think that the only way to do it, or the best way to do it, is always like the American Republic, the early American Republic in every circumstance. I think that'd be idiotic to say.
Well said. There's a lot in there. The code has changed. The people changed. The code has changed. Caldwell, I interviewed him. His book, Age of Entitlement, about the crisis of two constitutions. Oh wait, I'm confusing Kessler's book. There's the
Yeah.
Caldwell book, Age of Entitlement, which is about the development of a new constitution within the United States, and then Kessler's book, Crisis of the Two Constitutions. Both fantastic reads. I think anybody who follows this channel, listens to me, should definitely read both of those books to get a better understanding of where we are today. And you did leave it open-ended. Yeah, there are other regimes that are possible. The American Republic, as founded in 1789, isn't the only way. It was the right way at the right time for the right people in the right circumstances. People that had gone through history together, had a shared common language, religion, blood, had spilled their blood, had fought the wars, and that was the right thing at the right time. I'm coming to appreciate that perhaps the focus wasn't on the three branches of government, constitutional republic, but rather doing the right thing at the right time for the right kind of people, in order to secure the natural rights of men, which is great. But you know what? It opens up the door to new possibilities when you begin to perceive it that way, instead of solely focusing on the founding as like it's all about the three system, the constitutional republic. That was the goal. I don't know if it was a goal, and I'm no scholar. I'm just a dude with the mic asking questions, which is why I love having these conversations.
Well, they did love the Republican form of government, and so do I. Like, because I think we don't realize what you give up if you want to become a subject rather than a citizen. But you really do give something up. That Republican form of government is powerful. It's created some of those beautiful, those small republics. Created some beautiful things back in the day, and there's something noble about it. And I'm a fan. I don't want to say it otherwise. And I think that I really am. But there's a lot of ways to skin the cat, and the founders themselves left the Constitution. I don't know why conservatives don't talk about this. If you want to change it, they had a way to change it, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's because they knew that this was, these things needed to be altered. And if this shouldn't sound scary to people, we're talking about actually creating something like refounding in a way, or shaping a founding in a way that something changes at the founding level in a way that actually lead to to good. And just like it did for those rebels who stood up and hammered out a form of government in the 18th century.